and upload this, a quick introduction that India is experiencing a rapid urbanization, and is estimated that by 2030, close to 60% of Indians will be living in urban areas. India will also be the third largest economy by 2025, and powering that growth is the country's rapid urbanization. This also brings with it the challenges of urbanization, including the mobility challenge for what we are gathered here today. And this is already being felt in Indian cities, whether it is a tech hub of Bangalore or the financial capital of India, which is Mumbai. Now, how can we enhance the capacity and capability of its urban systems and city infrastructure to ensure that people are able to move from one place to another in an affordable, sustainable, and seamless manner? And let's begin with asking Ersten to come here. Ersten, we would like to hear a few words from you. We will be, we're going to keep it to about 3 to 4 minutes of each of our participants speaking, and then have a question and answer session, of course, depending on the time, because we have a coffee break coming up as well. All yours.
Well, good morning, everybody. I hope you feel as good as I feel. Because Sweden won the football against Germany. I feel the same in India when you won the cricket match. So I will start by talking a bit about this, and unfortunately give some sad news. I started with the good news. When we're talking about transportation, we know that we are using a lot of fossil fuels. We know that this contributes with the carbon dioxide emission, enormous. You have the temperature in India about more than 50 degrees. France has a new record. I think we see the dramatic consequences. And that is one part why we must move away from using the fossil fuel. The other one is the problem with the health. Even in Sweden, we have quite good air quality in the cities. We are below the limitation from European Union. Still, more than 7,000 Swedes died earlier last year because of bad air quality. You can imagine how many that will be in India and in other countries. So we need to find a way out of this. So what is a solution? First thing is also that everyone wants to live in a city, nearly. Because you are moving quickly to the cities. I moved myself to Stockholm from the western part of Sweden. I still like the western part, but I also like Stockholm. Cities create jobs and opportunities. So we must live with that. More people are moving in that direction. But we must try to plan it better. So you don't need to do the transport every day to the job. So you have a smarter solution for this. But this doesn't help. And then the solution comes up. We must use EV cars and EV buses. That is only part of the solution. They are very good. They are very efficient from an energy point of view. No emission, no noise. But you still have some problem. You need a lot of money to buy them. You also see that the production of the battery is not very good. The emission from the battery production is quite large. We don't even know how to recycle the batteries in the future. But we should continue to use more EV cars and EV buses. But the speed is not fast enough. So we need, as we have done in Sweden, also use alternative fuels. Sweden is the leading country in the European Union introducing alternative fuels. We have more than 10% of the whole fuel system. I think this is also a good area for cooperation with India. We use our waste to produce biogas. We started with the sludge. We're now using more of the organic waste from the houses. We also build up factories for biodiesel. I'm very happy to listen to the introduction from CII saying that you're moving in the same direction, that you can also add to the fuel to the airplane transportation. So this is something where we can have a good cooperation between India and Sweden. And introduce more alternative fuels in both the countries. But this is not even enough. We need also to use more bicycle. In Sweden, we used more bicycle before. Now we have to change the situation in the cities to have it more. Need to use this. Okay, can you hear better now? We need more bicycles, and the reason is that it's good for your health, but it's also more convenient. So we have to rebuild many of the cities to be able to use more bicycle. But all those solutions will not be enough, because there is no space enough. We are too many people in the cities, so the street area is not enough. So we have to minimize the amount of vehicles. So we introduced share car, which is very good. The car will not stand in the garage for 95% of the lifetime. We can also use more Uber taxi, but we need to go below the street. In Stockholm, more than 60% of transportation will be with the subway and train. And that's the only way for many cities. You cannot only use the street, you must go below them. And also, we have been talking now about transport of people. Transport of goods is also very important for a city. You need food coming in, you need waste going out. And how do we do that? Totally chaotic, both in Sweden and India. And it will be even worse, because we are buying electronic. We don't even pay for the transport. They are coming with small lorries just to your house with a parcel. This cannot go on. We must be more clever. For the transport sector, we must organize much smarter how we do the transport. And there is a giant possibility between India and Sweden here. We have the very good companies, Scania and Volvo. They can cooperate with the smart guys or girls, more girls, I will say in India, it's smarter. And then you can develop a solution using artificial intelligence so that we can have small lorries going around in the cities, maybe without driver, but with less influence on the environment. And I think there is a very good opportunity in the future to develop this. So I tried to point it out, 2 areas where we can cooperate to find solutions together, and that is my key message, so thank you.
Thank you, Östen. Nicholas. Let's just stand.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? No? You can hear me? Good. Okay, so my name is Niklas Irén. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Matters Group. And we are change makers for sustainability. We are working towards accelerating the type of changes required to meet the sustainability challenges we are facing globally. That's what we have as our corporate mission and what we strive to accomplish. And we work basically in 2 different ways. One is that we work with the, let's say, the traditional actors in traditional markets as they are being transformed by sustainability issues. So the markets are being redrawn, and we help companies, municipalities, cities, governments to redefine and re-optimize as sustainability challenges change the markets. The other way we work is that we work together with what we call solution providers. So companies that have some kind of technology which really is part of the solution. Technologies with the potential to solve or be part of solving some of these sustainability issues. And then we work together with these companies to accelerate change. and typically to find the synergies between the solution providers and the traditional markets where the change needs to happen. So that is how we work. And we work in, of course, many of the areas that have been under discussion today. So it's been an inspiring morning also for me. And it's also been very inspiring to hear the perspectives from India, of course. I started to work towards India as a market for change some 20 years ago, and it's been very, very inspiring and humbling to work towards India in many different ways. Sanju and I go back a long time when we built the India Business Forum and part of Globe Forum some 15 years ago, and the reason why it's so inspiring to work with India is, of course, that India is the melting pot of both the issues and the opportunities. In India, you have the biggest range between new innovations and affluence on one hand, and poverty and the worst challenges on the other hand. So in India, you have it all. And it's a country big as any continent, and that really makes India unique in its in its situation, and very, very challenging and inspiring to work with. And we've been talking about cities and how cities are really key to the future, both in terms of issues and possibilities. And that's, I think it's really key to understand that the rapid urbanization that we see is a product of the value creation in cities. So people are moving to cities because there is more value generated for people in cities. But with that comes challenges also, of course. And one of the really critical ones is mobility. And we, from Matters Group, we are working with both mobility and transport issues in several different ways, trying to find solutions for more sustainable mobility, both within cities but also in between cities. And so I would like to tell you a little bit about one of the perspectives and one of the projects that we are working with. We have already talked a bit about electrification of mobility as being a key towards a more sustainable mobility solution. We've also briefly touched upon the need for automation or autonomous vehicles as part of city solutions, where the road system can be more efficiently used through autonomous vehicles, where not everybody needs to own his own car, etc. So a lot of parking and congestion will actually go away as we move to more autonomous solutions. And in the intersection between autonomous vehicles and electrification comes a very, very interesting project that we are working with right now, which is called Smart Road Gotland. Here on Gotland, outside Visby, or in between Visby and the airport, we are right now starting to build the first in the world inductive charging electric road for heavy vehicles, for both buses and trucks. And what is this? What is an electric road, and what is the purpose of this? Well, when we talk about electrification of mobility, we typically talk about electric cars. And as we all know, the downside of that electrification is the batteries. The batteries are the limitation in every way. The batteries are negative in their environmental impact, both when the minerals are being mined, but also when they need to be recycled. The batteries are expensive. They are the thing that really keeps the transition to electric go slower than we want, because there is so much cost in the batteries. The batteries are also providing the limitations for users in terms of range. That's one of the key reasons why people are hesitant to move to electric cars, because they don't know how well they will be able to depend on the range of their batteries. And then finally, the batteries are also limited in their life length, which also is a risk factor for users. So batteries is the downside. And as it turns out, batteries as a technology is an increasingly bad solution when we move to bigger vehicles. And so for buses, it's possible to use batteries, but since the size is bigger, the batteries become huge. With trucks, heavy trucks, it becomes even more worse as a solution. So what an electric road is a road where vehicles are able to charge or drive the engine while driving. So the need for batteries is either non-existent or very, very small. So you reduce all or most of the issues we have with battery technology today. So the road we are building is 4.5 kilometers long, and it's going to be electrified with inductive technology, which means that there is electric coils under the road. So there is nothing visible. The road will look exactly the same as before, but the vehicles will be able to be charged while driving over it. And this is a demonstration project which will go on for 3 years, and during these 3 years we will test all the different aspects of the technology, and we will have a bus going in commercial operation between the airport and the city, together with in a cooperation with Flygbussarna. So all of you will be able to use the bus to go back and forth to the airport also.
Nicholas, I'll have to sort of
yes,
ask you to wrap up.
I understand. So I just then want to tell you that the interest for this technology is, of course, huge from all over the world, and not least from India. So we have a second demonstration coming up actually in Israel later this year, but we also have huge interest from several different parts of India, and we are in dialogue with several Indian cities regarding electrification with electric roads. Thank you.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much, Nicholas. And let's quickly have Aarti here on stage. Aarti, I'm going to pose the question, and sort of you can make your presentation as part of your answer as well. This is a challenge which we kind of face in India, and sort of just to put it very quickly, the average walking speed of a person in a city in Bangalore is 5 kilometers an hour, I think in most places.
That's the average driving distance to Gaza.
Well, exactly. The average speed of a vehicle moving from one place to another is just 17 kilometers an hour in Bangalore. And it has dropped by about 2.5 kilometers from the previous year. So in Indian cities, people are spending more and more time on the roads, and I think it's perhaps not just an Indian phenomenon, it is a global phenomena in the big cities as well. But of course, looking for solutions from experts like yours, so go ahead. I'll load a presentation till then.
Actually, that's fine.
Okay.
I'm going to be really short because it would be great to get a discussion on this. I think Swami's presentation raised a lot of questions. There have been some good points from the people before me. And I think what I should do is present who I am in terms of the weightage I bring to the stories. So I work with Sweden Inter Business Council, so today I bring you a business perspective. And that is the bias I bring to this discussion, and that should be known. But I'm also a common person who is purchasing the EV discussion sustainability with my wallet. I had a slide here, and really the summary that I make, and Soma touched upon this earlier, is that let's not talk about nation states. Let's not talk about India and Sweden. Let's talk about Stockholm and Delhi. Let's talk about Surat and Gotland. Let's actually localize the discussion and say we go beyond boundaries when it comes to our problems. I've worked now with Sweden and India for 15 years in the energy space. And I think what's happened today to actually make the story come home is, Soma touched upon it, the air pollution. 14 cities today are really suffering. The average citizen understands what air pollution means and the impact of climate change. 10 years ago, when I was in Delhi, and I was talking about, at that time, it was sustainable development, which moved to climate change adaptation and mitigation, which talked about the impact and the money required to make these changes. No one on the street understood, nor did they care. It was something that paid my salary and paid many people's salaries in state capitals. Today, that understanding is now at the street level. And the question becomes, in this ecosystem of challenges, mobility being one of them, who takes the first step? Is that better? Okay. So in this ecosystem of challenges, who takes the first step? Soma touched upon her role as business, having a hard role to play, and I argue that the concept of making business sense is critical. And in new energy markets and mobility, it is not business that will do this. We had a conference that the ambassador touched upon in 2017 called Make in India. We brought, SIBCB, one of the organizers, we brought a host of representatives from India and a host of representatives from Sweden together to discuss a number of issues. Smart cities at that time was a core focus area. We put together a business roundtable with some of the largest players in Sweden and some of the largest players in India. And we had a very inspirational, aspirational, philosophical discussion. And we asked some big questions. And we got a very, very clear response from business. Our job is not to change mindset. Our job is to satisfy it. Whose job is it to change mindset? It's not business. There are so many different ecosystem players that have to get involved when it comes to new energy markets and the mobility challenge. We will see the impact when it comes to market change, but that is not where we'll start, not with the risk takers. Something that SIBC is doing together with Soma's team is actually understanding where these opportunities for change lie. What's happening in different cities? The Delhi discussion on mobility is not the Bangalore discussion. The Bangalore discussion is really a discussion that you need to see to believe. If you live 10 kilometers away from your work in the office, that's considered to be actually quite a dire commute. 10 kilometers takes an hour in Bangalore, depending on where you live. How do we actually change these mindsets? How do we get market change? We are working on a report, SIBC, together with Soma's team, to understand the different players, different stakeholders, and where their opportunities for engagement are. Not everyone should go to India. Why should you go to India? When should you go to India? What is India to you? And is it Delhi? Is it Surat? Is it Pune? Is it Pondicherry? Where should you go, depending on what you have? What we see as a key challenge, and Swami touched upon this, is the battery discussion. When it comes to mobility, if you're looking at an EV systematic tipping point change, you need to talk batteries. Ursa mentioned it as well. We need to understand how we can actually make this applicable and acceptable and attractive to a common person. Now, we've also had a discussion about mobility as a service. And that's actually where India is moving today. And I think that's where Sweden is moving today. It's not about you owning a car, because the challenges are quite high to own an EV in Stockholm. It costs 3 times as much to have an EV charging station parking spot than it does a regular parking spot. What is the incentive? Public transport is great, but if you buy a car, will you buy an EV? No, you won't. Not unless you have a dedicated parking spot given to you. How do we talk about mobility as a service, saying, I want to get from point A to point B. Get me there, however it takes. Public transport is great, but maybe in India, it's an electric bicycle. Maybe it's a 4-wheeler EV. Maybe it's a bus. Let's not limit our discussions by terms that don't allow us to actually move across segments. And mobility as a service is how we should perhaps look at this discussion. Not as 4-wheelers, 2-wheelers, 3-wheelers, but how do we get the service to as many people as possible? Now, SIBC will be taking, together with the Swedish Smart Grid Forum, Technique for Target and CII, business delegations to India multiple times in the year to try and have this discussion between stakeholders who have similar objectives. We all come from so many different, multiple disciplines, but we have a common objective. And that is actually market change. But it's not about me and you, it's about us. but we need to see our similar common areas of overlap and also our differences and create those opportunities together. I have many notes here, which I've not looked at because I wanted to just get this out so we could have a discussion. But I think really what I want to say is the global-local discussion is really critical here. Definitions are limiting. I think we should move beyond definitions to discuss solving problems.
Thanks, Alfie. Thank you. So Shoma, would you like to say a few words, or can I quickly pose a question to you? And I think then we would have to wrap up because we're eating into the coffee break as well. I think all of you have raised very pertinent points and at sort of at different levels. But a lot of emphasis has been sort of paid towards what governments can do, or towards what two different governments can do in partnership and collaboration, and what businesses can do. What about the role of people, and what about the role of communities? Shoma, would you like to attempt that?
Yeah. Thank you very much, and I think that's a very pertinent question. Just to give you a very quick wrap-up of what's happening in the mobility space in India. As I said, and I touched upon in my earlier talk, mobility is a lot to do with fuel, the transition in energy, and the choices a country makes when it comes to its fuel, particularly for a country like India, which is really not abundant in its fuel sources. We know that world over, and India is not lagging behind, is talking of electric mobility as the next big thing that has to happen. But let me also add to it, just like what Aarti said, it's easier said than done. And that's because, again, because of the huge diversity of India and the kind of people you're dealing with. So what means sense for maybe an aspirational young guy in one of the cities in Delhi or Bombay may be completely unaffordable for a person who uses a two-wheeler for his livelihood in the towns. The current debate, and I don't know how many of you are following, is we are trying to say by when do we need to make the switch. Now the switch is not just about changing an ICE engine to an electric engine. It's about the infrastructure created with it. Where are the charging stations? Where is the electric points? Where are the houses that have been planned with parking slots which can do that for you? We don't have that in place. So while we may be very ambitious to say that, yes, we need to change over by another 3 years or 4 years for the two-wheeler and three-wheeler segment, because they are the people who are going to cart people. And I think that was one of the topics here. It's not about moving cars, but moving people. And it's true, when you're looking at moving people, you have to look at public transportation. You have to look at fleets and not necessarily just the car owners. So I think the emphasis in India at this point is on public transportation. They are looking at fleets like the logistic fleets, the home delivery guys of the Flipkarts and the Amazons and the rest. Are they kind of willing to switch over to electric two-wheelers instead of the cars, bikes that they own today? But again, who's going to be supplying that to them? Is your ecosystem ready to do that? And most importantly, I think this is all coming in India at a very, very, if I may use the word, for want of a better word, a strange time. And why is that? We realized our pollution levels are very high, and so we brought in Euro 6 3 years earlier, and it's going to start giving that fuel next year in the country. Now, Euro 6 is designed to reduce emissions for your cars. The question today is it the time, therefore, to now switch to electric vehicle? There are investments that have gone in by the auto industry and by the oil industry to get you Euro 6. So these are very large questions. And I think a very important point which often confronts us when we talk of vehicle choices and mobility is, what is the real goal? What is the goal? What are we looking at when we're looking at mobility choices? Is it about particulate matters? Is it about energy security? It is about technology choices. Is it about affordability? It is very important for us to understand what that goal is. We believe more and more that it is about the particulate matter. It is not to do with energy security. A lot of people like saying that this is for the energy security of the country, but I'm sorry, I differ here. It's not about energy security, because what you're going to do, perhaps, is import lithium instead of importing crude oil. You don't have lithium resources in India. So how is it solving our energy security? But yes, it is making us secure because we are going for a technology which is more sustainable. It is better because it's going to make our cities sustainable. It is better because people are going to live a more healthier life. And from that point of view, the choice of this technology is very, very natural and good. But like I said, it's very important for the government, for the business, for stakeholders to decide what segment of the consumers are you looking at. Are you looking at private cars and vehicles? Are you looking at public transport, which is the state governments adopting this in their fleet? Are you looking at logistics? Are you looking at incentivizing battery and R&D in that so that you can move away from lithium, look into zinc and the others? It's a whole ecosystem. And I think the question in India today is really out in the open. Any reading in this matter and you will get all sorts of contradictory reports, writings that are coming up because everybody is trying to understand what are the choices that we need to make. And the fact that it has to be made over the next 3 to 5 years is what is really making all them. We cannot afford to have the pollution in our cities as we have today. And mobility is a very important block in that entire thing. So I think from that point of view, India will have to make its choices. India will want to collaborate with any country which can provide us solutions, again, like I said, which are locally suited for India, because that's most important given the fact that we have different markets playing in India. And it is a large market. So, you know, that's always the carrot that we can share with anybody who's trying to invest in India, because the volumes just play out for you. So I think I'll stop at that. But basically,
and we, in fact, that's an interesting point that you're raising, which we should take up in our closing seminar later in the evening as well, on, you know, sort of what this kind of sustainability can do for the rest of the, you know, for us as a humanity and as a race. Well, we have about 10 minutes, so if Austin, if you can squeeze in an answer into 2 minutes, I would like to put a question to you. A major factor with, I think those of you who work with India and Sweden, is that affordability is a factor. And so how do you make how do you make collaboration affordable? Very, very quickly, Austin, just 2 minutes. Yeah.
It's not only to make things affordable to India, that's an old way to see it. It's also to make it affordable Indian solution to Sweden. It goes more and more in both directions. What I'm thinking, your first question about municipality is, as I understand, a barrier. Give me one example. If you want to treat the wastewater in India or in Sweden, you are asked to treat it to be good enough for the environment outside. That is not circular. As the professor introduced, you must link different aspects. So you should instead ask them, treat the water so that water can be reused and that you produce biogas energy more than you are using and then produce phosphor. When we come to those new ideas, it opens the eyes that you can see a more circular society coming up. We have started to move in this direction in Sweden by saying everyone should produce biogas, which is now done. All sewage wastewater treatment plant. And then we also now try also to produce phosphor that can be recycled in a pure form. I think those aspects is similar in India and Sweden, US, wherever you go. But we must put the target much tougher to be more circular. And that can open many of the barriers. So I think that could be a way forward for the understanding. I hope you answer your question in 1 minute, 45 seconds.
All right, we will have to wrap up this session, the mobility challenge, with that, I'm afraid. But thank you so much, Austin. Thanks, Nicholas. Thank you, Aarti and Soma, for your inputs. And there's a coffee break for 6 minutes exactly. We should be back at 11:30. Thank you.